Welcome back to a surprisingly new episode of just us ripping into Sigmata. Ugh.
It's real, people. It's real, and we're still here.
Oh god, I'm Adam. I'm the tech guy that fucks up everything he touches.
I'm Alabaster, and I'm still the dumbass that's still here, who could have fled this, but for your entertainment is still here.
I'm Randall, the guy with the perpetual Lenny voice. Tell me about the rabbits, Adam.
Well, you see, rabbits in this case is a giant angry Hugh Jackman that pops out of your TV and murders you if you downvote the next movie of X-Men.
Marvel needs that money.
Marvel needs it especially because they still can't make X-Men movie yet. They haven't even started.
And I believe that we are going to be we're starting on the subroutines in Sigmata, which is basically your superpowers and shit. Go to
Yeah,
Chad Walk.
I think Randall and I not last week, 2 weeks ago, went a little bit over a couple of them, and by a little I mean we just skimmed through them, and they just looked fucking boring.
So we're probably only gonna touch on this chapter, partially because it's boring and partially due to copyright. So let's get right to it with on page 53, Chad Walker spurgs about television.
Oh, the elemental subroutines.
Television
Yep.
elementals. Can we summon this in D&D now?
I know that I think there's a calzone elemental that was published as a joke.
Yeah, there is. I also know that there is a brain golem, straw golem, and spooge golem.
What?
Yeah, spooge golem is a thing.
God damn it.
Can they make a sponge golem? I just want to use SpongeBob to beat people to death with.
No, that's creative. We're playing around with Chad Walker, who kind of cares more about limiting what your cyberpunk robots can do than being truly creative.
Well, the thing is, hold on.
Somehow at the same time, also making it so that you can just override the GM at any point. But
oh god.
start reading the elemental subroutines.
Alright, so elemental subroutines, or elementals, permit a receiver to exploit the technology that surrounds her in terrifying and wondrous ways. So it's not elemental, it's technomancy. You are a technopath. That is the actual superpower term that's commonly attributed to people that can literally control technology, like a telekinetic controls moving objects.
Wait, doesn't the Teen Titans have a super villain like that?
I'm not completely a DC fan. The closest I could think of is from the TV show with Control Freak.
That's who I was thinking of.
He kind of has that. I was thinking, oh, geez, I was thinking more like Gear from Static Shock, although he built his stuff, so it's more just super genius there. But yeah, so you can't really call this elementals, but I guess we are. God damn it.
It's Chad Walker. He needs a pretentious new term for everything.
Given the ubiquity of technology in American cities, such as televisions, radios, telephones, consumer electronics, and electrical infrastructure, elementals make it trivial for a receiver to turn her environment into a weapon, shield, or situational advantage. Just sounds like a well-played druid to me. However, elementals become less useful in rural and natural environments, i.e. flyover moo cow states, where I think Chad Walker doesn't think they even have electricity.
I don't have. The only way I have electricity is by a hand crank that I have to crank for 10 hours a day with a hamster wheel device that I constructed. That's the only way I'm talking to you guys.
You could always just do what quite a few Latin American cities and villages do, where they just use a bunch of old motors from, say, like Ford F-150s or whatever, and just hook them up to power key lights or things they need.
But in rural flyover moo cow country, that'll get you burned as a witch.
You know how to repair your car without going to the maintenance man. You're a witch.
Anyway, let's plunge on here.
Technology is considerably less ubiquitous, so basically your powers are only as free as technology is limited. That is not to say that elementals cannot be used effectively there, only that players may require a little more creativity than usual to explain where the technology came from, and how it will be exploited to get the outcome she desires. By the way, I found a way to utterly fuck this over. It just came to me. Any technology is defined as anything that humans make to improve their lives. So you could have a gay robot just use like a fucking wheel as their superpower. I can make wheels run you over. I can use pencils to stab you to death with. They just fly up like like from Magneto and X-Men 2 and just fly forward.
See, I was thinking of just hauling around television everywhere to throw at people.
I like the idea of the Ticonderoga missile, though. Just take a box of pencils and just use it to force throw it at people.
Just Blue Raja everyone. It just make awful pencil puns like I'm stand right there or I'll fill you with lead.
I'm gonna erase ya.
I'm gonna rub you out.
It's time to get straight to the point.
When using elementals, players are encouraged to push their directorial control of a scene to its limits. Cathode warp, for example, requires a television set to jump into and then another one to jump out of. So I guess Hugh Jackman 5000 is using that power. There's no need to ask the GM where the nearest television is located, how many of them are in the apartment complex, or whether or not they need to be plugged in. Just now envisioning like Hugh Jackman just flies out of a dead TV in a dump.
My question though is, I would have been hilarious if they had to be working, so that if somebody's in midstream, someone unplugs it. It's like you get slammed against the back of the TV. It's like, God damn it!
There's this Freedom First member just regularly plugging in and plugging out TVs. It's just messing with them.
Yes.
That's like the shitty job that they give to the fuck ups. Like, oh, you fucked up patrol last week. All right, you're on television plugging duty.
I like to think it's the idea. Wait, in a creative scene, a DM, isn't it important to know where the TVs are located? So, like that way, that you could set up a jump point correctly. Because if you're just going to blindly jump places, that's a player versus GM scenario will butt fuck you epic.
No. You see, players should paint the scene to facilitate the story they wish to tell. So you just make shit up.
I like the part that they forget to include that it forces the DM to then make up new things outside of the stuff that they already have to make up, thus pissing them off. Because the further off rails you go, the harder it is on the DM. At least at the moment. It takes time to either get you back on the rails or, more creatively, just build a new track line.
Or lazily just declare, fuck it, and let the players take over.
I think that's what Chad did.
Hey, let's continue. Conjure up a break room with a television, or conversion van with a television in it parked nearby, and then position the patrolling Freedom First soldiers right next to it. If the GM feels your explanation violates the tone or stretches credibility too far, such as a timely airdrop of consumer electronics to deliver a television to the scene, she may ask for a do-over or veto the use of the subroutine. That's the trade-off of a player makes when selecting elementals. Sometimes the requisite technology isn't just available.
I'm just now envisioning the Resistance using the Blood Raven's deep strike tactics to just airdrop TVs deep into enemy territory.
No. They have specialized mortar teams that just tie like flat old TVs to mortar shells and launch them into enemy territory.
I like no. What I like is the idea of somebody that's using a TV, like a smaller TV, and really makes the plug uses like 10 or 12 gauge. They replace the wire with 10 or 12 gauge like wire, and they're using it kind of like a meteor hammer that they do to throw the receiver out.
That's the strangest fastball special ever. And I'm just now envisioning just them using the mortar. It's like, Raul, you forgot to put the parachute on. Don't worry, it doesn't matter as long as it's kind of intact. And then the guy just kind of crawls out of the TV covered in cuts.
Oh God damn it!
Elementals are introduced below, each sorted into their technological element: television, telephony, radio, and electronics. There are 4 subroutines for each element, each tied to a different core processor listed in alpha. Okay, blah blah blah. Let's go on to Chad spurging about television, because this is actually kind of entertaining. Alabaster, you want to take this?
Okay, television elementals. These subroutines allow a receiver to use television sets, computer monitors, and arcade cabinets. Oh, that's an interesting one, to our tactical advantage. In this case, does the Konami code give you extra life?
Oh God, are you saying that this takes place in the Pixel cinematic universe?
Oh God!
I did not progress, but I will totally overthrow the evil government by just doing this. And he just kind of walks around to the other side of the screen and appears on the other side because he only knows Pac-Man.
All right, shitlords, let's continue on. Cathode Claymore Aggression. This subroutine allows a receiver to close her eyes, attune herself to the flow of broadcast television waves, or compel the cathode tubes of a nearby television's computing monitors and arcade cabinets to erupt like cannons, each spewing glass, shrapnel, and arcs of destructive energy. With this power, she can instantly convert a living room, sports bar, arcade, or consumer into a veritable kill zone. This receiver adds a number of successes equal to her aggression reading. Okay, so they did have the Allahu Akbar TVs.
Only instead of it being explosives, they just have a bunch of Walkmans strapped to themselves.
God. Does this mean that we're going to have to ban? Does this mean we're going to have a license to carry TVs now?
The newest talking point is: should we ban Walkmans? Should we ban CD players?
Cathode Eye Judgment. This subroutine allows a receiver to gaze into the screen of a turned-on television set. You know, that's normal shit, and extend her consciousness to the electrical current and see from the perspective of a similar device in the vicinity, so spyware. She can use its intelligence gleams from a temporary surveillance network to outmaneuver her enemies and provide guidance to her allies. This receiver adds a number of successes equal to her judgment rating to her tactics, so long as her player can narrate. Okay, I'm going to actually give Chad on that one. That's a solid one.
Yeah, but he ripped that off probably from just your standard Cyberpunk, where you get your Decker or your hacker in general to just get into the system using their wireless array to do this.
With a little bit of 1984 with the 2-way TVs.
Yeah, it's clever, and you can tell that it's mostly because he tried to make it his own, but it just doesn't quite make it its own.
I'm going to. I at least
I'm being a little harsh on him. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm going to give him. Me personally, I'm going to give him. I'm going to give him an okay on that one.
Yeah.
Cathode Warp Guile. This subroutine allows a receiver to press herself into the screen of the television set akin to Hugh Jackman Bot 5000 to travel at the speed of light, then crawl out of the vicinity of any similar device in the vicinity. This form of teleportation allows her to bypass virtually any type of security protocols instantly to drop otherwise unassailable foes or horrify witnesses with the display that between television and the Guile. Okay, so shouldn't they be turned on though, so that there's electrical current flowing?
Nope, he didn't think of that.
Yeah, if you shut it off, literally, if you shut it off, then that flows off the current,
I think he's
which, like I
operating on
said,
poltergeist logic, like the first poltergeist, where they do that in the movie, and
but
people.
the difference is they're goddamn ghosts.
Do you think Chad Walker thought about that? I think
No,
not.
Yeah, drones.
no.
This subroutine allows a receiver to concentrate on television set. He repeats himself, basically monitors shit, and then project the characters or creatures of the show or the video game into the senses of those who are in her vicinity. So this is illusion shit. Her captive audience begins to see, feel, and hear these illusions if they were part of the corporeal world. These illusions can thrill, delight, distract, inform, or horrify their audience, depending on what the receiver wants the audience to experience. This receiver adds a number of successes. Okay, as long as you can. Oh God.
Oh, hi, Biggie.
Hey, surprise guest. What's going on?
Hi, it's me, Big Spoon. I came back from the dead.
He wanted to escape the superpowers because it almost broke him to realize how little there is in terms of crunch.
Best thing there is your ability to make anime real.
Yeah, I was going to think more along the lines of, oh, well, I have to deal with this. I'll just have, I don't know, Pastor Fred Rogers appear from Mr. Robert Rogers' neighborhood and just, I don't know, have him gut King Friday in front of this live audience.
I would just put on like the most like just I thought the idea is that players would take this to the extreme and just think of the most hardcore Rule 34 porn they could just project these people for their eternal horror.
Oh no.
Given it's the 80s, I'm predicting a lot of Bugs Bunny. A lot of Bugs Bunny and drag.
Oh no. Are you telling me
So,
Bugs Bunny is trans?
Well, he is pretty comfortable dressing in women's clothing.
Oh no.
canon, it's official now.
Well,
Anyway,
let's get back on the track, boys. Let's read.
Oh yeah, telephony baloney. Yes, I stole that from another person in this chat. I'm evil.
We were actually going to skip over that. Let's go off to Ultimates and then anime memory power.
Oh, but what about the one little picture that's kind of midway between all that?
Oh, yeah. Let's introduce everybody to Lasery.
Lasery is probably his identity because, well, there could be other ways to describe it, but nah, this is just him reeing a helicopter to death.
He looks rather, from the stand, he looks pretty bored from it though.
It's just kind of
So is he?
standing impossibly on a tank.
I
And
can't
the
tell.
tank's
That's
lines
coming
are
out of
too
it.
thick, by the way. Look at
I
how
can't.
thick the tank lines are.
Oh well. Well, I think with the last people to give art advice, all I just know at this point. Well, actually, I'm more concerned. Is that coming out of his face, of his eyes, or is his mouth? I can't
It's
tell,
clearly
guys.
his mouth based on the angle.
Cybery 1986.
But seriously, look at the thickness of the lines of the tank and then just compare that to him, who is actually closer to the foreground than the tank barrel is. And then compare it to that some old bullshit that is just taking an actual photo of a helicopter and then just putting it through the art filter of a fucking
God, you're right.
Photoshop.
So much of this art is so lazy.
And it's too bad Rob Liefeld is a Trump supporter because I kind of want to see the abomination that would result from him doing a sketch of this.
Well, for
Like,
We
one
know
thing,
he's
the chest would
the
be twice as
helicopter.
thick.
we know Rob
Helicopters are
Liefeld's a
just
Trump
made
supporter
out.
because we know Rob Liefeld's a Trump supporter because I clearly saw it on the internet. I want to add for the record.
The beauty of the laser destroying a photograph of a helicopter.
Adam, you want to start off with ultimate subroutines? We'll probably go for a page here and then go on to 164.
Okay, then so the ultimate subroutines. Ultimate subroutines, or ultimates, are a receiver's most dangerous abilities and the primary reason the regime does everything in its power to prevent broadcasts of the signal. These subroutines are a little different from the others. They do not add successes to an op, but are essentially their own op. What? Selected during a receiver's turn instead of selecting a tactic. They cannot be used in conjunction with a blade, another subroutine, or anything else in the receiver dossier. Dossier being just his own little way of saying character sheet, but more pretentious. And for those of you who forget, and I don't blame you, blades are like physical mods and would be kind of like your feats or physical augmentations. And we already know what subroutines are. Due to their extraordinary power, an ultimate must be processed 3 times before being executed. But they can be processed using any core processor.
So you need to charge up. You gotta lend me your resistance energy.
I was actually going to do the Dragon Ball, the bridge joke of, this guy's pretty tough. I'm going to have to, but I have something that can beat him. Cool, what is it? Well, you're going to have to hold him off. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. For 5 minutes, and, well, given how hard he's been kicking our ass, you'll figure it out. It's pretty much that. It's the special beam cannon. So when executing an ultimate, a player makes an op with 5 core dice. For each success, the receiver neutralizes 1 threat or adds 4 exposure to an armored target such as an APC, gunship, receiver, or tank. Successes can be split between threats and armored targets. During massive battles, an ultimate inflicts 4 exposure per success rolled. Ultimates are a somewhat rare opportunity for players to tell stories about their receivers doing something truly epic and super heroic, so everyone at the table should let a player executing an ultimate have plenty of time to narrate its effects. And I guess just, I don't know, sit on their thumb the entire time.
This is just more more ways for you to fuck over the GM and to say, fuck you, this is my story now, boy.
Yeah, but it takes 3 turns before they can use it, which... Yeah, you can tell Chad's never played a tabletop because most fights, by my experience, usually end in what, maybe 2 or 3 turns?
This fucking game's gonna be a nightmare to run.
Yeah, because you're gonna have to make up everything on the fly, except, like, tear gas, tanks, and receivers.
I gotta fix Chad's game for him.
Actually, I don't think that's worth it, but it's up to you, man.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna take out this Herculean task for only like 12 views on this video.
No, we get at least 20 per, so a little better.
It'll burden to bear. So let's switch off. I think we'll read about 3 of these descriptions because there's something amusing, and then it's off to 164. So
Okay,
Al?
Cold War. This subroutine allows a receiver to harness the cold vacuum of deep space. What the fuck?
Yep.
Unleashing cryogen. What does space have to do with cryogenic energy? She concentrates until she targets. All of her wrath begins to float into the air as if no longer influenced by gravity. Then she whips her arm back as if she's ripping the heat out of him. The hapless victims out of this power burst into jagged stars of crystalline ice, only to plummet to the ground and shatter on impact.
Little does Chad Walker know, you don't freeze in space, you boil. Literally, you boil to death in space. Your blood starts boiling out of your body. It's horrifying.
Adam, you don't understand. Space is cold because lack of heat.
Yeah, but when you have nothing but the sun or a star staring at you, you're gonna be hit with like 300 degrees.
No, clearly they mean space where it's like, you're 5 billion light years away from the sun. It clearly means that, the void, I think.
And the gases and your fluids will still boil out of you horribly.
Yeah, due to the lack of atmospheric pressure. But, Biggie, you want to get Colossus?
From the X-Men? Oh, hell yeah, man. He's one of the cooler X-Men.
Oh god, do you think that Colossus was the inspiration for this shit show?
B.
Oh.
Colossus. He was one of the I liked him. He was one of the better X-Men.
Great.
It was either between... Well, Jesus, look at us! We're talking about different shit! Fucking... game. I don't even want to think about it anymore. I feel less. I think that's why I was late to this fucking thing, because I'm just not enthusiastic about this shit.
So you forgot, and I'm putting that in so many air quotes, it's not even funny.
Yeah, yeah. This subroutine allows a receiver to perform superheroic feats of strength. These expressions of physical power are beyond the realm of human feasibility and more akin to something a dinosaur or a movie monster would do. Examples include casually hurling automobiles behind bending tank cannons, tearing a vault door off its hinges, bursting through several buildings in a mad charge, or jumping high enough into the air to grapple onto and commandeer a flying helicopter.
I.e.
Porn
basic
rage.
shit that would be fun.
So what the so I'm looking at this shit here, and this is literally just a win action. It lets you. You know what I'm saying? This is literally just I cast fist and win. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
This is well. It's funny you should mention that because we're going on to digitization, or as I'm calling it, Thanos snap. This subroutine allows a receiver to reduce the elements of her environment into digital detritus. The seams of her metal-plated flesh open, revealing clusters of tiny laser emitters that light up and rapidly scan every inch of her surroundings. Obstacles and adversaries struck by these beams freeze in place, pixelate, and rapidly deteriorate like digitized dust blown by the wind.
I don't feel so
This is either-
good, Mr. Hitler dissolves into dust.
My
This
question
is
is,
literally a win button. This is like there's a fuck. You know, like the GM throws something at you, you can just say, "Oh, I use this," and it's gone. Bye.
I wouldn't call this the win button, I'd call it the war crime button.
Also, I'd like to add there's no like for the digitization, there's no maximum or minimum range for this
Oh
fucking
no,
thing.
so you can, as long as you can see from a certain distance, you can snipe people from kilometers, I'm guessing.
Great.
question though is, could someone be dastardly, use a mirror against you, and then cause it your own digitization powers fuck you up?
Likely.
Chad never considered that. Because it's not cool. You gotta be the cool Antifa super soldier cyborg.
He didn't think of it because, to give you an idea, he doesn't think of players that would min-max this shit. So
Should
we're
we move on to memory 165?
Yeah, the rest of them seem pretty... Wait, free radicals. Oh, no. There's one more that I want to read personally because of how bad this is. Radio free radicals. This subroutine allows a receiver to convert radio waves carrying the signal into invisible blades of cellular death. She raises her hands to channel the signal permeating the air, and then thrusts it at the direction of the matter she wishes to obliterate. All organic matter in her path either combusts instantly or slows into piles of twitching slop. It's literally dissolve into pudding. The power.
Okay, that's
Again,
actually a
no
little
range
badass.
given.
It is pretty awful. I love it. It's so good. So, what are we skipping on to? Something collateral damage?
165.
Okay. So memory. So, before she became a cyborg revolutionary, the receiver was just another person caught up in the regime's oppressive transformation of America and the violent conflict that followed the rise of the resistance. There were many people in her life, but a handful of them were emotional anchors whose leadership, wisdom, love, sacrifice, or cruelty made her the person she is today. They have been friends, families, rivals, partners, coworkers, classmates, lovers, squadmates, mentors, captors, or hated foes, all of which Chad Walker tries to avoid feeling. At some point, however, they were lost to the receiver, either killed during conflict, detained by the regime, or transformed into something unrecognizable, probably that ball of fucking pudding that you used that radical attack on.
My question is, couldn't you play a receiver that was killed by other Sigmata receivers, and you're not in it necessarily for the regime, but you're in it to go murder all those goddamn receivers.
Are you sympathizing with the fascist boy?
I just want to kill all these cyborg assholes.
You're sympathizing with the Nazis there. Looks like
Oh
that's a
no.
paddling. So
As I go to use my extendo fist to go punch straight through his chest.
I cast dissolve in the pudding. Yet those emotional anchors still live on in the receiver as a memory, so a normal human feature. And she invokes that memory to power through her most desperate of trials. Each memory, representing a person from her past, is tied to a core processor which designs the receiver's relationship and experiences with the anchor. For example, if the memory was a loved one who met a cruel and untimely end, or a regime scientist who tormented her in a laboratory, then that memory might manifest as aggression. If the memory was a patient mentor who taught the receiver everything she knows, or a cold and calculating political strategist who showed her the path to glory, then that memory might manifest as judgment, and so forth. Thank God he only gave 2 examples. Receivers begin play with 1 memory. It's the only thing they know. It's the only thing I remember.
Only one.
My question is, so do you at least remember to know how to not shit yourself?
I'm just now envisioning,
Probably not.
as soon as you become a receiver, your clothes explode off and you scream in a kind of bored way. You're just reduced to that 1 memory, so you don't know who you are, you don't know what you're doing here, you don't know why they're shooting at you, but you know you must do X.
And that memory is buying a hot dog.
If that's the only memory. Oh God.
I remember that pigeon that stole that, and there was a pigeon that stole that hot dog. So it's a vendetta against that pigeon.
Hey, that's its memory, the pigeon. So,
You're a one-man pigeon-killing machine. You will exterminate every flying rats until you get your hot dog.
The pigeon took a shit on me. Now I'm going for revenge.
this memory is tied to a single core processor of a player's choosing. Once per session, a receiver can invoke a memory immediately after an op is made to convert any die results that are neither successes or botches into successes, so long as that op would normally be rolled using the matching core processor, and so long as her player can narrate a thematically appropriate flashback. That sounds like something I would fucking make when I was in the middle of a very cold streak of dice, out of spite. Chad, are you too a salty monstrosity fit only for the deep brine of the depths?
Well, when
Oh.
you're angry at Donald Trump, you go down some places. I mean, this whole fucking thing was written out of spite for an orange man.
The salt mines have been put out of business from the amount of salt that was generated in 2016.
I think he's trying to invoke the anime trope of the memory of my sensei drives me to use the super ultra forbidden katana technique and defeat the bad guy.
Yeah, but usually my experience is those types of memories are usually. I mean, it's the hero usually, but sometimes the villain does that too because they're usually motivated in their own crazy way.
So could enemy receiver? Nah.
So basically, it's the That's the I win button, I think, Biggie. Oh yeah, I rolled a bunch of 4s and 3s. Well, no.
Well, all of this is the I win button. This is literally just bullshit to describe how you're going to kill all the angry white people.
So anyway, the example that they have is Jake, a receiver named Cyclops. Basically, he tries to provide cover fire, fucks up, and Cyclops is a fucking Korea vet? Really? I mean,
Or it's the 80s. They wouldn't be all that old.
he's still in his 50s, though.
You're-
Something. You can tell that basically Chad Walker kind of probably only knows war from Saving Private Ryan at best.
Oh no, Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, yeah.
Call of Duty.
Yeah, this is pretty much just this is pretty much just a. I remember my sergeant bailing our asses out of a failed evac point or whatever, like you would see in a war movie.
We're
Saving
surrounded by
Private Odd.
Tangos and Charlies and all the Zulus. We were
I like to think
over
that-
I
With
think we can
clips.
just skip the rest and just go into libraries.
Let's skip libraries. It's boring. Let's go to 170 peripherals.
Thank God.
Congratulations, Chad. Nobody cares.
Peripherals. As crucial members of the resistance, receivers have access to nearly anything they need to succeed in their missions, including but not limited to firearms, body armor, KY jelly, breaking and entering tools, sex offender wardrobe, pedo vans, communication equipment, duct tape, and all those things to seek their sexual desires.
Well, the
player-
facilities are clearly just used as basically an electronics store, because you know that's the facilities Chad Walker routinely goes into every day.
Oh, he
They're
must
just
have, he he must have been so devastated when Radio Shack went bankrupt.
His dad
You think
had
this is-
his dad had to kick down the door to prevent a suicide attempt.
Chad, it's Radio Shack. It's not worth necking yourself over.
The only reason he didn't do it was because Chad Senior showed him Newegg.com.
Oh
A
no.
player does not need to keep a running inventory of equipment that she has to carry around her all the time. If she needs it and access to the realm, then she will. No, that's not how you works.
I'm just now envisioning I could just pull an AR-15 literally out of my ass.
No, there are some DMs. If you don't have the equipment, you don't bring that equipment, or you drop that shit, you can be butt fucked by that.
There are no rules. This book is fucking worthless.
Oh,
I can get the fact that certain missions will give you the requisition tools to succeed it. That doesn't mean that. But then again, players are humans, and we can screw up pretty epically. Or in a gunfight, my hacking tools can get ripped to shreds as I just barely avoided gunfire. This doesn't account for any of this.
And there's also the matter that sometimes what may not seem like something important now might become important later. Like, yeah, most GMs will ignore if you don't use your rations, especially if you go to the city regularly. It's assumed that you just scrounge or just buy it. But
if you don't have
go
rope
into
in
the
a gun,
desert or something, or on the
or you don't carry rope into a dungeon or anything like that, then you can start getting into some trouble.
Oh Christ.
In some cases,
you just have cartoon hammer space and can pull whatever you feel like out of it.
just pull
some
from
scenes
behind
like
your
attending
pistol. Sorry.
Attending a social event with strict security, she may be expected to narrate where certain pieces of equipment came from. My handgun was smuggled in by a comrade who was working the kitchen.
Oh God! It
Most
literally did
objects
come
per
out of
se.
his ass.
Wow. Most objects that a receiver utilizes don't have mechanical value per se. You don't say! The influences how the game works. Simply helps her tell the story and contribute to the story space.
Economy in this game. What dat? It don't work just like capitalism, according to Chad Walker.
But seriously, I can understand that I can understand, not being obsessive compulsive where players don't have to buy their equipment and
You're obviously wearing clothes. If you're wearing clothes, you probably have food.
Yeah,
maybe
or
even a little bit of
during each mission, the DM is going to specifically design it to give you just the right tools to help complete the job if handled correctly.
Everyone should at least have a gun of some sort and a couple clips. Now, if you're spraying and praying, GM's like, well, do you have any more ammunition clips? What? Yeah, you fired 20 bullets. And a handgun. Do you have any more bullets?
All right, guys. I think it's time to move on.
However,
we just need to know.
Tools, trinkets, and technology at her disposal are the exception. Some help her overcome obstacles, some compensate for her weakness, and some are simply immense sentimental value to her. These peripherals are important iconic objects that a receiver wouldn't be caught dead without. in many ways peripherals define who she is. The gorilla has her battle rifle and the Kevlar vest. The listless teenager has her Walkman and the private investigator has her rain and micro. Oh fuck
A
you!
duster. He's wearing a fucking duster.
Fuck
He
you,
wants to be a cowboy.
disorder. What the fuck? Fuck you! Leave Decker out of this, you ass. Anarchist has her patch leather jacket and steel toe shit kickers because the anarchist is such a original person.
You forgot the black guy from the right-wing fascist that she tried to hassle.
Something she carries with her every day.
Left can't. The left not only can't meme, but the left can't fight.
Every peripheral assists a receiver in achieving a desired outcomes when using a specific tactic, whether she is not actually conscious of the object's impact. What?
Oh my
What?
god, this is like the Amnifest ring.
What the fuck? So I have to.
Like
So
Christian
what? Am
with
I
his
not?
totems.
Oh my god! It's like me holding a gun. It's like, oh my god, what does this even do? And just me just casually moving it while it's just shooting random enemies.
If you just flail hard enough with the right peripheries, you can win. Like,
we need to bust this lock. I got a lock. I got a bolt cutter. Let's hit the
I think
lock
that
a
they're
few
using the
times
bolt
with the bolt cutter. Oh no!
I think they're using the bolt cutter like a hammer. It's like, why won't it open?
I was actually gonna say, instead of that, it's like, let me just get the only thing I was able to escape my house fire with, and it's like, just a big, I don't know, it's just like a big fucking spoon. It's just hitting against the... It's my settlement of memory of my childhood home. It'll open the lock.
I like to see at the end it just utterly fails.
Well, given who our DM will be, that's almost a certainty.
A peripheral permits a receiver to ignore a single botch at any time she uses a specific tactic, so long as the player can incorporate the peripheral when narrating the outcome. If the player leverages a...
I'm just envisioning
the player...
rubbing the fucking spoon, and it works.
My question is, does this mean that I can use a teddy bear? So if my peripheral was a teddy bear, and can I use a teddy bear to kill somebody with?
Gary, why we fucking lost it. Woo.
If a player leverages a peripheral but still does poorly enough to see the narrative, such a result is upgraded to it because of a What? So that I could utterly fucking fail with a teddy bear, but still, just because it's my peripheral, I could still somewhat succeed.
We just keep stealing. We just keep stealing any chance you can have of changing the story, Biggie.
Only one peripheral can be leveraged per gay op.
Oh.
The tactic that the peripheral supports is selected by the player and adds to a receiver dossier once the player requisitions it, steals it, pulls it off a defeated enemy or comrade. Below are a few. I'm not gonna fucking read that shit.
Some antique kookery. Oh, so this person stole an antique kookery from a museum. That's lovely.
I thought that fascists were utterly fond with history, that they wouldn't bomb museum.
Oh no! You see, it's it was the bad museum that the fascists don't like. That's why it was bombed. Okay.
They bombed it because it wasn't making enough money.
Oh god, this one. Sigmata frequently wears a matte black duster her partner playfully calls Transylvania Vice. She bought it to feel like less of a square when she went to punk and new wave shows.
No, you're more of a square. Only a fucking idiot stuck in 1952 uses the term square. You know the last time I heard that? I read a fucking Silver Age Spider-Man comic written by Stan Lee himself. Flash
Oh, no,
Thompson
no.
called Peter a square in that one. It was 1962, Chad. Come on.
Wait. The last time I heard square was Fairy Odd Parents when Timmy's dad says that pants are for squares.
Yeah,
It's
but
meant to be a
Timmy's
dad
dad is
joke.
supposed to be from like the 70s, and he's an old dad.
Oh no! Are you telling me Chad Walker got something wrong?
No. You see,
Ow!
it worked too. Everyone seemed to ignore her, but not because it made her fit in. Turns out the coat seems to eat light, making it
What?
almost impossible to see her in poorly lit environments like nightclubs. Fuck if I know.
Okay.
You should get the next one.
Do you want me to start at oh,
That's supposed to be cleaner.
I don't do leet, alright?
Wait, no. I found one I need to get. Sorry.
Alright. Well, shut up. Vlad, it's not your turn to speak. You shut up, you.
Get the cleaner one, Biggie.
Shut up, you.
I saw some keywords in there that makes me want to. That is hilarious.
Alright. Cleaner runs a private BBS. No, I don't know what a BBS is. Please explain this to me. I'm a millennial.
BBSs were a thing in like the 90s, I think.
Well, what are they?
You know,
Basically,
What
like
are they, Adam?
early internet.
yeah, it's like pre-internet or something. To give you an idea, this is so boomer that even I can't figure this out.
The BBS that caters to a nexus of globalists, resistant sympathizers, and survivors of the Pinochet regime.
They survived their helicopter ride.
I was thinking like cleaners talking to the denizens of Lemuria. They're talking to this fish people that has taken the tech from the dead people from the helicopters.
The Dice Scum would just like to say we are pro Pinochet on this channel, and we think the helicopter massacres were a good thing.
Well, no, we're not pro Pinochet. We are pro fish people.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
hail Dagon.
Hail daggone.
And also, Stalin did nothing wrong.
Yes.
Shit. Fuck. Let's want to cover a level
Okay,
up.
here, rumors and insights related to oppressed and oppressors alike are shared with a trusted community. Every once in a while, these rumors and insights have direct applicability to espionage operations he is actively involved in. This parallel allows him to ignore a single botch on any snoop ops. So as long as BBS insights are incorporated into Cleaner's narration.
So
I would also
basically, he's like your average hacker in a Shadowrun or Cyberpunk game.
I just realized something. This fucking bulletin board system. This is Alex Jones's nightmare. It's full of globalists, terrorists, and communists.
And don't forget fish people.
Yeah.
My question.
I guarantee that Alex Jones probably believes that some of the Cthulhu mythos is real.
Well, no, that's more David Icke, but
So globalists are good.
by
Yeah,
Chad Walker's logic, they are.
Yes.
I'll say this: it's kind of weird the shift on the left in the recent years, because back in like 2000, there was the battle for Seattle, with the was it the G8 or World Trade Organization? There was some meeting of globalists in Seattle, and a bunch of far left groups rioted.
Oh my God.
They've done a total 180, all because Orange Man said bad things about globalists. So globalism equal good.
Well, it's more that they're paid shills to their own little pet causes, and they don't really care. As long as it makes them look good. So, any other peripherals, or do we just continue to move on?
Let's continue to move on. We're gonna be here all day if we keep walking about this shit.
Okay, so upgrade points. Jesus, that's a lot of points.
Oh my God! Thank God, there's something resembling rules here.
Almost a table. Look at that, guys.
Oh yeah, it is. It's almost a table. The only thing he's missing is a title, and then the subtitles for the thing you buy and the cost.
Look, this is fucking Chad Walker, damn it. So we gotta grade this on a curve. This isn't considered impressive for our
This
taste.
is an A+ for him, yeah. And on top
Yeah.
of that, I only see one thing that is ostensibly a White Wolf ripoff, and that's the increasing attribute.
But then again, every system
Most
has
point
it.
buys like that do it, so I'm not gonna ding him at all on it. Upgrade points. Since you care about them, Biggie, why not you?
All right, upgrade points. Throughout a campaign, receivers steadily grow in power. Continued exposure to the signal causes their subroutines to expand and evolve. Radiological synergy between receivers permits them to machine learn new libraries, while stress testing their chassis in the field leads to better methods of overclocking their core process vendors. New blades liberated from regime facilities discovered in what?
Just shoving in garbage inside of your. We made that joke before when we talked about blades. You're just shoving garbage inside of you, and you gain
Dumpsters.
powers based on it.
So basically, you are the trash. I'm the trash man.
So what you're saying
what?
is you're changing your character to be Danny DeVito.
Yes.
Yes. Your power is to hurl garbage at people.
Or pulled from the husk of fallen receivers, are installed in their chassis by resistance engineers. New peripherals are requisitioned by resistance quartermasters or acquired during missions. The player can purchase any of these forms of individual growth and acquisition by spending upgrade points or ups. A game currency that is earned over the course of a campaign. The accumulation of ups is discussed later in the text in the chapter that discusses campaign actions and missions. For now, we will list how they can be spent.
And there's a nice little table here. And you know what's sad? I was actually envisioning a what could have been great game. I call it Robot Quest, where basically you're just a bunch of war robots that went rogue. Like in this kind of dystopian, but more like the RoboCop, where it's close to our time, but shittier. Like you're just like a bunch of Ed 209s and RoboCops that just go rogue. And something like this is a thing.
Even with that bare bones system, it's that bare bones idea. I still prefer it to Sigmata.
Yeah, like your different powers are based on what war robot you would have been, like your army bot, fire bot, medic bot, whatever. That's a good idea. I might expand on that one day.
Basically, we're going to make Warframe. Do you just want to do Warframe basic?
Never really touched Warframe.
I guess
as a
he
game,
does.
So probably. So upgraded subroutines. Oh, they can be upgraded too. It basically just means you can do it more often, though. That's lame.
Maybe we got another picture below.
Oh, and this one's actually good.
Oh,
hey, look, it's Doom! It's Doom, guys!
It's called Grasshopper 2000.
Can I read this? Ego game, ego games instead of id games. Long-awaited sequel is here. The XX 256 bytes plunge us into a photorealistic 3D world. Sergeant Hopper cuts a bloody swath through 64 levels of cyber commies and deviants. The AR-15 is spot on, and the SG-0000 has to be fired to be believed. The buses are radical. The old Liberty statue crawls out of New York Harbor. If you can defeat that bitch, you're better than me. This is it, guys. The future of games has arrived.
Wait, what the fuck? Like, the old Liberty statue? Like,
I guess we blew it up.
You hate commies, but you're gonna destroy the Statue of Liberty, the ultimate symbol of America? Are you fucking high?
No, it's the new Statue of Liberty where she's doing a Roman salute.
Oh, right.
So the thing it's for is, I think, supposed to be the ZX Spectrum. Oh, also, I just noticed in the side, Klansman 2. Classy platform.
Westward Ho, I think that's supposed to be Oregon Trail. but with emphasis on killing the savage Indians.
Oh look, a ripoff from one of my favorite movies of all time, War Games. Falcon's Maze. Nice going, jackass.
An expedition of degenerate computers, Atlantean mechanism, the brass head of alchemy, Babler's analysis, German rice. Oh, the German number machine. So wait, so they're Nazis, but we're gonna show Nazi stuff as degenerate?
I think this is supposed to be a parody of the Museum of Degenerate Art that the Nazis set up, where they just put a bunch of like surrealist painters, and it was like, hey, simpletons, come laugh at these horrible Jewish influenced paintings, and then it turned out to be really popular, and they just shut it down because they were grumpy.
Also, hilariously, I find it funny that the last two are legit. I mean, all of these are based on things that we've seen that are actual
Yeah.
things, but I don't know why he chose to change them up. It's not like there's copyrights about them.
1 month's mass will show failures of computation from corrupt and Asiatic culture. Yes, the
So-
Germans, the most Asiatic culture of all.
I was going to go with that's supposed to be Babbage's differential engine next to the brass head. That's British. That is the most Anglo-Saxon thing ever. Is it because the programming was done by a woman?
I don't know.
1986. Also, the way they're talking in the Grasshopper 2000 is like the thing that you'd use
92.
in
It's more
Rattles.
like a 92 thing.
But now I want to play Grasshopper 2000. I want to go murder commies and whatnot. That sounds fun.
I just saw that for some reason there's a thing called Blades too. Why?
Yeah,
Why?
you could get your literal cyborg upgrade chips, and they're just sold on the fucking street.
I'm just envisioning like some of them are just. No, I need that to live. It's my pacemaker, and it's getting ripped out of him because he's not white. This will be more useful to a proud American. And by not white, I mean he was Jewish.
I imagine the receivers hate Jews just as much as the resistance does.
Well,
Yeah.
that's an average thing I've noticed among the extreme sides.
No matter who it is, they're always going to piss on the Jews, unfortunately.
Oh boy. I see something down here. I think we're entering a new chapter.
Oh yes, we're away from the mechanics and into more terrible lore.
The Resistance!
The Resistance, oh god.
We're getting a cameo by one of the Dead Rising 2 redneck snipers on the left there.
Oh yeah, I see it. Let's get a better image of. So the Resistance is Stolen Valor, Black Velma, some lawyer guy, and not Martin Luther King.
No, that black woman is actually trans woman. Look at her jaw; it's too sharp to be a lady's. Look at.
Oh my god, no, that's not the result of mannishness. That's inbred. I think she might be the illegitimate child of one of the Habsburgs.
Oh my god!
And just the march of the skulls back there.
Oh yes, the Paul Blarts are on parade. Alright, so our Resistance members, all 4 of the little freakazoids.
Such a state. It looks like it's a stable alliance.
Oh, definitely. You know what? Let's look into this alliance a little further.
We're in heated debates over whether to order French toast or pancakes.
Oh yeah, they're chilling out on a fucking cafe or something.
Cafe socialist.
They are. They pretty much are.
Wait, this was actually you know what this is? This is actually redone artwork from the actual board meeting that happened with LOP LLC when coming up with Sigma.
It probably is. Only the Dead Rising guy was not there.
No, he was
Oh,
there.
no.
He was there to kick Chad's ass. And
Oh no! I think that's how Chad That's how Chad dresses up, but he's not as buff.
No,
Oh,
wait. That's his dad. That's Chad
That's
Senior.
Chad Senior in his old war outfit.
So we know that Chad Senior served in the 101st. Or Stolen Valor. I don't know. It could be either or at this point.
So let's plow on. Adam, you want to start off with our reading? We should switch off every paragraph or so, or every break. Yeah.
Okay, so numbers and geography. There are tens of millions of people in the United States and hundreds of millions of people throughout the world that the regime would categorize as resistance sympathizers. Those who favor the resistance but limit their support to gestures of political solidarity or turning a blind eye to the movement's illegal activities. There are hundreds of thousands of people in the United States and tens and thousands of people outside the United States that the regime would categorize as resistance partisans. Those who actively engage in military, clandestine, and political operations designed to destabilize and dismantle the regime. Oh my god. That. I'm just counting how many lines that one sentence is, and it's disgusting. Being a partisan is considered treason, a crime punishable by death, usually in the form of summary execution in the streets. Being a sympathizer is not illegal, though the regime continually builds cases to link known sympathizers to resistance criminal operations, so that they can be tried as partisans and dealt with accordingly. No kangaroo trial here. Which is interesting because even the most corrupt shitholes usually do this. Like, the Great Purge, for example, at least got a show trial. Usually.
No. Chad explains it.
While this may seem like an unnecessary step, the veneer of due process makes it psychologically easier for the regime's enforcers to exterminate their fellow human beings. It also makes the regime's program of ethnic cleansing more palatable to the loyalist population. To disrupt regime targeting, partisans hide among the sympathizers, and sympathizers blend in among the larger loyalist population, only publicly identifying themselves as potentially sympathetic to the cause when they attend mass demonstrations. Don't you love how ethical terrorism allows using human shields? They hide among the sympathizers, so they're using human shields.
Oh, the regime admonishes this strategy as using unwilling human shields.
are those willing human shields? What?
But they are. Those are human shields by definition, Chad. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh no, they're resistance walls.
Okay, I'm just gonna move on, or else my brain will literally fry. And has retroactively used it as an excuse to forcefully parse populations according to apparent ethnicity, presumed sexual orientation, and degrees of assimilation aversion. So I guess the idea is if you even know the rule of don't wear white past Labor Day, you're just instantly gunned down. I think that's what presumed sexual orientation means. Oh, you don't wear white after Labor Day? Okay, you're done.
So fashion faux pas in this universe will get you killed. Good to know.
There are resistance-controlled territories throughout the United States, typically in the form of out-of-the-way rural ghost towns or walled-off immigrant neighborhoods the Freedom Fries have declared no-go zones, because the locals had the nerve to fight back.
Oh, so that's what. So that's what the Europe. So that's what no go Europe things are in Europe. It's just the locals. I put in the biggest quotations have the nerve to fight back against the legitimate.
These
Oh,
look
it's illegitimate authority because they're evil fascists, despite being a democratically elected government.
every time. These locations are becoming rarer by the day thanks to regime sanitation operations, which require sustained embargoes and media blackouts to execute, as well as a believable cover story. Gas explosion leak kills 150. Oh, by the way, he's probably basing this on Mexico during its rougher years in like the That implies he does research. But notice that even in his own mind, you're losing. At no point can you ever actually fix this problem. Because notice that they're losing right now. They don't even have the ability to do anything other than essentially fight like the Viet Cong. They have no North Vietnam or anything.
But that's the point. You're supposed to resist being the badass guerrilla Antifa army.
Chad Walker would be executed against the wall as an enemy of the state for defeatism in most communist societies. Members of the resistance who are not hiding among the loyalist population, using human shields, or occupying no-go zones are either languishing in one of the regime's processing centers, taking refuge in neutral countries, or battling Cold War puppets around the globe, without exception, propped up by either the United States or the Soviet Union, who apparently is still able to fund all this despite their economy ossifying. So,
Alternate
up next.
history. Alabaster, Maxims and Demands.
Hold on. The Resistance is an extraordinary diverse collection. Can we put a TM by diverse? Because every time I hear diverse, I always want to put trademark by it.
As soon as I hear diverse, you know what I hear? The person saying this is racist.
Represented by virtually every conceivable background, social class, and community identity. Oh, god damn. It's comprised of people currently targeted by the regime.
Apparently your dog hates diversity too.
That's okay. He's a hound dog, so it's now.
That's terrible.
People who will eventually get targeted by the regime, or others who will not content to stand by while their fellow humans get exterminated, either directly through slow burning degradation.
I heard the line, so I guess the dog doesn't want them exterminated. It just wants them gone.
Supporting the resistance, or more accurately, pulling it in 4 different directions, are the four powerful socio-political factions that supply the movement with material support, fighters, organizational expertise. Mapping the disparate political views and belief systems of the resistance would be an impossible exercise, even without the political rancor that the supporting factions bring to the movement. The likelihood of 2 members of the resistance being 100% politically aligned is the same. Oh God! So they have virtually no common bonds whatsoever.
Nope. They can't even form an effective. No wonder they're fucking up. They can't form an effective resistance at all.
The thing is, you can't have two. The thing is, what forms any country or movement is to have enough of even if you have some disagreements, you'd have to have major points that bring you all together.
They do. Read on.
Such as there may be only 3 political maxim: state is more corrupt than must be seized or outright smashed. The state punishes people for the crime existing. So basically, all they are is just ran by piss and vinegar. Piss and vinegar is the only movement that brings them together. That's a state.
They're literally driven by the desire to destroy. Because notice that they want to seize and smash. They don't want to do anything else. They just want to murder. They want to fucking slaughter. They want to loot.
Notice seized or smashed. So presumably, if they seize it, they're perfectly okay with doing the same things to their enemies.
Virtually every political position, value statement, and long-term strategy beyond these 3 maxims are hotly debated within the resistance, sometimes to the point of blows. Or fire. Oh God, fire. God, so they're so unstable that they're going to fucking shoot each other?
How is this a movement of hundreds of thousands?
This is like bringing a bunch of degenerate... This is like bringing Crips and Bloods and Latino Latin kings into the same group, expecting them not to murder each other just because they all hate the police.
You have a better chance of them forming an actual crime syndicate, though.
The resistance demands of the regime have been similarly reduced to 3 points of agreement. The freedom fries must be abolished, effective immediately. All members of Congress must resign, effective immediately.
I think your dog likes that position.
It would probably help a lot if we could do that, at least every now and again.
The executive
Yeah.
and his entire cabinet must resign. Orange Man must resign. Impeach.
That's what whenever they hope that Trump gets impeached, they always keep forgetting that the person that's up next is President Pence. And they think they can just run that board until literally everyone is out.
Though these demands are quite straightforward, the details of their implementation are anything but. No fucking shit. The abolishment of the freedom fries, for example, means different things to different scenarios. Deliberate restoring a separate, breaking up the fist and reorganizing into militias that protect autonomous regions, setting up military, and so forth. What would follow the resignation of colonists and the executive branch is equally contested. Some advocate for free and fair national elections to replace the fascists and their neighbors. Some, oh my god, the nationalization and oh my god, fucking degenerate commies. They need to be shot up against the walls.
And other advocate for the complete abolishment of the federal
Oh my god, we're
government.
gonna go full ANCAP, guys.
How is this even a movement?
My god, the libertarians and the communists would fucking be at each other's throats.
I think they are.
They usually are. Anarchists and communists, just a quick history, they've for a long time hated each other, and the big reason is just kind of ultimately stems from a fundamental philosophy difference. Anarchism in its nature is very individualistic, by yourself. Communism in the name implies everyone working together. It's more of a communal effort. The final goal is this dumb utopia idea that just doesn't work because of human nature, but the mechanics of how it work are very subtly different.
Yeah,
There's a reason Bakunin was kicked out of the Internationale along with his anarchist supporters very early on.
majority of the resistance understands that these issues will need to be settled the moment. Well, the war of ideas will be fought after the war for survival.
A
And
second
in the
civil
country
war
will
after the previous civil war. It's the perfect plan.
don't you like? I mean, when countries get utterly butt fucked, I mean, we had plans and contingencies in place to rebuild Japan and Germany after a horrible war, so that this shit would never.
Nope, that's boring. Super soldier Antifa warriors.
I think he's trying to think of it like Libya during Arab Spring, where after it won, they formed something and then got into another civil war. Like, what was it, 4 years later?
Pretty much. Now it's essentially a fractured country where you can have pockets controlled by very radical militias. A war of ideas. It is hopes, and all of this contest will not transform into a violence. Oh, it's hope, as the bloody and painful immediate fight against the regime.
It's
Motherfucker,
non-hazmat.
you've put people with such divergent ideas into the same room with only united against one common enemy. The instant that goes away, they are going to be at each other's throats.
To give you an idea, your best hope is this winds up like Vault 15 from the original Fallout.
So you mean they all go out the waste? But then again, that would lead into a massive civil war because the country's being divided and
Yeah, but that's like your best hope. Your worst hope is you fight a much more painful civil war that eventually one side wins, exterminates the others, and then just does the same thing but worse.
This organization.
Resistance receives its national strategy from Resistance Command, a group of anonymous dispassionate strategists who orchestrate the activities of regional resistance blocks. Resistance Command is nearly as shadowy and mysterious as Sigmata BBS. No one knows exactly who they are, where they reside, or what their true motives are. Some suspect that the Resistance Command does not even exist, and it is instead a figurehead invented to frighten loyalists, give resistance sympathizers and partisans false hope, or enable regional resistance leaders to justify courses of action that seem problematic.
Committing atrocities.
My question though is, what if the whole twist was at the end that the resistance really was under the control of the regime the whole time as a false flag?
Uh, that's
Oh,
too witty for
no,
Chat
that's actually
Blocker.
really clever and depressing. I could just totally see this happen where they get to the president's chair and the president's not at all scared and he does look very Trumpian, but I'm going to say he also has a lot of Reagan in him. So it's like, congratulations, you've overthrown the government to install me back as president. What are you talking about? I'm resistant command.
What
What?
a twist!
That would be no, that actually would be way too intelligent, and
What's a twist?
that would actually be kind of neat. Where it just turns out it's one big false flag to keep to keep the fascists in power. You see, the country works best if there's an exterior threat, and we've been kicking the Soviets' ass since 1978. So, what better way to keep us in power than to fabricate a new threat
What if
statement?
in a way you could warp it even a way where they're trying to make it look like that America is being besieged on all sides and that they're losing on the front, when in reality the news is opposite. So the commies are getting their fucking faces stomped in, and it's just to rally more support.
Or,
Through
or or it's
1980s.
just the fake media highlighting, like the fake underground media highlighting that these bloodbaths are not as bad as they are, actually nowhere near as bad as they are.
You mean like real media?
You know how we were kicking the Viet Cong's and North Vietnam's ass until the media managed to cause such a shit fit that we basically fought with only one hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Also,
much.
wait. Didn't the though the question is, didn't the incompetence of BBC media actually help the Falklands campaign?
It did. It's one of those few times that actually did. Such is the curse of 24-hour news. So where were we? Something resistance partisans?
I got it. Resistance partisans get their direction from Regional Command, one of the contentious, deliberative bodies overseeing resistance efforts in the American East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, or South. Regional commands are almost always compromised of factional leaders at each other's throats,
That
carefully balancing the need to keep a coalition together while jockeying for the influence and advantage needed to ensure that their own vision of political utopia reigns once the regime has been toppled.
So they don't even have the consistency of nationalist Spain during the Spanish Civil War. Or actually, the Republican Spain. Because at least they were separated into their factions. For the most part, a mixture of, Republic order troops. And then you got your anarchist and communist militias that worked with the Republic troops that were fighting for their life. Yeah, but they fucking hated each other and sniped at each other as often as they did the fascists.
I think we're getting to that. Receivers interface directly with regional command. Only these leaders and their most trusted agents and advisors recognize the receivers as cybernetic vanguards. All others see them as anonymous partisans. Whenever a receiver's handle is leaked, it is almost always because someone in regional command has been careless or become compromised.
So my question though is, what's keeping the receivers from being radicalized by the other members of the resistance though? This is making a lot of big of ass assumptions that the receivers are going to be are going to be bipartisan and non-political. Though when you're with this group that's politically charged, it almost feels like you'd almost be obligated to be politically charged in this situation.
Yeah, like imagine if Tyrone and Jethro are trying to present themselves as calm operatives, when in reality, Tyrone's kind of been for the past few months attending Black Panther meetings and is a full-on Maoist, and Jethro, he's part of the current Christian militia movement. And the two in the field fucking hate each other. And insane command would actually keep them on opposite sides of the front so they just don't get into a shit-slinging match.
I would imagine that. At camps, so combat camps with these guys frequently break out into fucking fist fights and whatnot.
Just like imagine, like Jethro loses his shit, laser-rees Tyrone, and Tyrone just responds by Allahu Akbaring all of the televisions in the area just to hurt him.
So basically, it's nothing but a bunch of Super Saiyans that fucking hate each other thrown into a refugee camp.
In a sane world, yes, but they're apparently supposed to somehow work together.
Anyway, Adam, how about you introduce us to the faction?
By the way, Biggie pulled a cut and run. I think the mechanics or the fluff is making him go a little space crazy. So the faction. Yep.
He's currently piloting his wheelchair somewhere around Alberta.
He's driving off the nearest cliff. That's what did him in Sigmata.
He's pining for the fjords. The resistance is bolstered by 4 socio-political factions who hate each other only slightly less than they hate the regime. Oh. The old men, the party, the faith, and the makers. Okay, so those are some very first draft level names.
I think it's supposed to be very fluff light, so you can just cut and paste it into whatever setting you want, aka just scratch out all the 1986 dates and replace them with 2019 dates.
You're probably right. You might be right, but I don't want to give Chad this because we've kind of highlighted how he's been kind of lazy and maybe only wrote 1 draft for the most part. So these, I believe, are working titles. And like, to give you an idea, in 5 seconds, I came up with better names. Veterans, Secretariat, the faith is actually good enough on its own, and Capitalistas, or whatever. Just something like that, a little bit of more thinking.
Yeah, the Atlas Coalition?
Oh yeah, like the Atlas Foundation for the makers, maybe.
How about the you could actually make a set with the old men is you could make a parody of the 3%ers, make it the 2%.
That's not bad, or maybe vets, or maybe you could even do like I mean, you'd be ripping off Metal Gear, but you could be like soldiers without homes, or the
Patriots.
old soldiers who never die. The party is pretty much anything communist, and faith or you're religious. Fun fact, though, did you know that there is actually a variant of communism that integrates religion?
Yeah, Christian communism.
Yep. And when thrown that way, it actually became a lot more successful in places like the Middle East, where they just revised it so it's Islamic communism or Islamic socialism.
Wasn't there also Jewish Bolshevism as well?
Judeo-Bolshevism. It's mainly used by right-wingers who really hate Jews because a lot of the founding thought people behind communism were Jewish. It's just kind of coincidental that the slightly wealthier guys, due to them usually coming from better backgrounds, have more time to think about things and why things are the way they are. And since they're kind of hated, they kind of like an ideology where they're not treated like shit just because they go to a different temple.
Them 2 minute long words, it's the Jews.
And then, ironically, because of this, that they're even hated even more for it.
Each group brings with it the material support, fighters, organizational expertise, and vision required to transform the resistance movement into a legitimate revolutionary force that can contend with the regime. But they're losing, dude. Like, they're losing land. Unless he's going Maoist logic, where you lose men and you lose the land and keep the men, you're fine. Is that Chad's logic?
Or we will drown them in the waves. We'll drown them in our debt or something like. Is he working with Soviet?
Well, the way Mao worked was lose land and keep men. You can still prosecute a war. Lose men but keep land, you're certain to lose.
There's kind of a logic there.
Mao wasn't a complete idiot when it came to running a resistance movement. He just was when he came to running a country.
Anyway, we should continue.
Yeah, good point. We're getting sidetracked. Vision, as in a vision of America after victory against the regime, is probably the most crucial element that the factions bring to the fight. Outrage against the regime has propelled the people to fight for its ouster, but it is the vision of a post-regime America that keeps them in the fight long enough to see it through. The trouble, however, is that each faction has its own vision and is fully committed to co-opting the movement for its own purpose, to achieve its own version of utopia, or at the very least prevent other factions from co-opting the movement.
Oh God! So you're saying is that what's keeping the other? So you're saying that this movement, even while doing this movement will fall apart due to them backstabbing each.
And they're not even caring. They just have this they're just cynically using it as a vehicle.
A fun fact: we'll cover this later, but there are mechanics for this.
Oh God. All four factions have been severely aggrieved by the regime politically, financially, and kinetically. Some of them only recently, and others for decades. While their interests frequently overlap, they were simply incapable of coming together in a meaningful or lasting way until receivers arrived on the scene. It took gay robots to get these people to get along. It wasn't even due to the regime's meddling. Each of the factions were filled with demagogues, ideological cancers who demanded party purity and who eschewed any type of compromise as treason to the cause. That's actually unique among most people suffering from derangement. He actually does understand that purity usually weakens you. These zealots manufactured and enforced political wedges that made coalition building impossible and pragmatism taboo, often for reasons as selfish and cynical as assuring their own power in their respective parties. The receivers did not suffer these fools. It is not that they didn't have their own opinions on what an ideal society looked like, or what steps needed to be taken to arrive there. Some were fiercely political, and their values aligned with some factions more than others. However, they were also being aggressively hunted down by a regime that wanted to destroy them or brainwash them into fascist super soldiers. The curse, the power, and the responsibility bestowed upon them by the Sigmata parsed the pragmatic signal from the ideological noise. And it also allows Chad Walker to condense, well, not condense, but to stretch out 10 words into 100 words of bullshit.
It's a true superpower.
That should be a power that you get. Like, that should be one of your elementals. Word vomit.
Bullshit cutting.
No, word vomit. You type a single word on a computer and you just blow up other computers in the network because it becomes like a million by the end. It increases an order of magnitude for each success. So where was I? They understood succinctly that everyone can go back to squabbling over the usual nonsense once the regime, an existential threat to all people's liberty, has been beaten into submission. It's really impressive that these gay robots are able to actually understand this idea.
Yeah. So, well, the other parties was being hunted down by the regime and to done stuff like that. What makes them so unique that they're going to be immune to this idea?
They're the player characters. That's it.
Wouldn't it be interesting if the player characters had to work through all this shit?
Or if he
That
ripped off White Wolf more and you had like different factions, like if this was Vampire, for example, you could have each of the factions be kind of like how in Vampire you could play a Camarilla group with a bunch of clans. You can go independent if you go with Setites or the Giovanni or something like that, or the Assamites. Or you can go Sabat with the Samici and the La Sombra. If you do something like that, that could be kind of neat, where you kind of go for like the party or the old men, like something like that.
Yeah, Chad brings it up, but he's like, "This is an optional rule because you're supposed to be Antifa super cyborgs and politics is boring. Go blow up Nazis."
It's really I'm honestly surprised he even likes White Wolf enough to rip off their system. I'm legit impressed because it really feels like he doesn't deal well with fluff, even though it's all he can write. So anyway, where was I? Something beaten into submission. It is rumored that the resistance motto was first uttered by a receiver who, disgusted by the shrill ideological arguments disrupting a strategy session, suddenly smashed the war table into splinters with a hammering fist. The silent, terrified leader stared at her dumbly, and she screamed at the top of her lungs, "Shut up and repeat the motherfucking signal!" That's the saddest motto ever.
So I would have, you know, what I would have done is like, wow, so you really are. Ah, fuck it. I can't even come up with shit. This is too dumb.
A better motto would be, "We fight for a free America."
Stop this bullshit arguing and let's get down. I have no time for arguing. Get to fucking fighting, or otherwise I'll kick your ass. Simple
Fight
fucking
first, squabble later.
Oh no, you need the game motto, and you also need the motherfucking to show us that this is sassy black lady.
Also
Hollywood's...
big boy word. Also big boy risky words that makes the teenagers go, ooh. Honestly, you could just rip off Together for Victory. That could be a good motto.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Forward, we will be introducing the 4 major factions that compose the resistance effort, discussing their history and grievances, and now I know why Biggie fucking left, the coward. The revolutionary competencies they bring to the table, and the strategic liabilities that come with their continued success.
All.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of fluff today. This is going to be painful. Also more world building, so that should be funny. It is critical, I don't know why he italicized that, to understand that none of the factions fully represent the socio-political zeitgeist they come from. In most cases, they represent a humanitarian and or revolutionary departure from expected norms. Translation, I'm writing this about modern year, but, like, just think about it in 1986, okay? Don't think too hard about it. Fuck. I should have had a second draft.
The old men. History and grievances. The old men are a collection of libertarian militants who've declared war on the executive branch. Oh my gosh, this is Don't Step on Sneck.
Oh, don't step on Sneck. Ring-a-ding-ding. Don't step on Sneck.
They take their name from the group's founding fathers, grizzled veterans of foreign wars who are actually old or beyond their years due to the horrors experienced in one of the many proxy wars of the times. They enlisted to defend America from its enemies, only to return to their tours stickened by the expressions of state power. This disgust would not initially manifest into action. In the years leading up to the American insurgency, the old men could not be bothered with the nascent civil rights movement, nor the anti-war movements, nor were they moved by the action by the state's deportation sweeps or the construction of internment camps. God damn, Chad, get to the fucking point. The campaigns. Instead, they responded by retreating to public life, living in rural areas far removed from the centers of state violence, getting away from shithole cities.
Does Chad think that only people from Mukau states join the military?
It was not until the establishment of the Freedom Fries and its partial deployment in rural America that woke them from their dogmatic slumber and decried the regime's tyranny. What started as a small cabal of veterans writing letters and communicating with each other over ham radios.
Chad Walker's autism favorite.
Became a veritable movement after their manifestos were shared via newspaper and radio. The old men demanded the Freedom Fries' immediate withdrawal from rural America and their utter dissolution of this unconstitutional body. They declared they were ready to wage asymmetric warfare.
You know, I think I've met a few of these people at the gun show.
Yeah, they're called 3%ers. They're usually overweight and haven't trained a day in their life beyond shooting their guns.
I've seen a couple of 3%ers. The ones I've seen are actually in pretty good shape. Though
they run the gamut, though.
They were in the military. They were previous military.
That's surprising. Most 3%ers usually don't make the cut or get washed out.
While the old men harbored no illusions they could win a kinetic contest against the state, they were confident they could make the fight so costly, so painful, the regime would make concessions to avoid it. They were convinced that liberty-minded patriots of all stripes would support them, and the soldiers comprising of the Fries would hesitate to fire on The massacre on Halite Hill would prove them all. And Halite Hill was the site of the old men's head, a fortified compound in the Rust Belt stockage with enough food. It would be the target and sanitation. The government orchestrated a mass murder not seen on American soil since Wounded Knee. Wait, it's not a mass murder if they're a bunch of armed, if they're fucking armed to the goddamn.
This is just Waco on crack.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what I would have done? I would have just repurposed Waco. Like, instead of Halite Hill, just have it be like Waco's ranch.
Yeah, where instead this ranch is actually like a super fort. It's like a fucking super fortress.
Yeah, like, instead of it being David Koresh, it's just a bunch of old people that are like, you fucking stay off our lawn and stop pretending that that you can control us.
After radio communications were jammed, roads in and out were blockaded with tanks, APCs, and news video were vacated. Civilian crop dusters. Dozens died, including non-official story was the militant must have accidentally detonated a antique. Oh God, this is fuck. He. Oh my God, he basically appropriated the Waco massacre. The Waco.
Here's the best part about this. Do you think a crop duster can actually hold a bunker buster bomb on it?
I don't think it's strong enough.
Remember when Janet Reno personally delivered the bunker buster to Waco on a crop duster?
Honestly, the more if I was gonna do this for maximum horror, you know what they could just do? Have them sarin gas the compound, not giving a shit that there were children and their wives in there too.
That would make more sense. Or they dropped firebomb, or they went to firebomb or something like that.
Or even like if they want to go ultra hammy, a tactical nuke from the Davy Crockett.
Goldman declared this an act of war, but no one stood with him. Prior to this movement, the media had been masterfully dehumanizing dissent for decades, whether it was focusing on the militancy of the Black Panther Party or drug use, the sexual promiscuity of the anti-war movement, which was filled with a bunch of fucking degenerates that were a bunch of goddamn cowards. The Fourth Estate presented on dissenters as unhinged and criminal, while simultaneously referring to the state spokesmen for the facts. The old men fell victim to the same pattern of dehumanization enhanced by existing rural versus urban, north versus south fissures.
Nice assumption that only southern boys join the military.
A large portion of them do, though.
Well, yeah, but it's also the Midwest, and you get quite a few in the Rust Belt. Even New England, you get quite a few of them. Even hippy dippy West Coast actually offers quite a few.
Well,
boys.
there is, out there. There's quite a bit of small towns that get fucked over. That where a lot of oh my God, they can get very fucking wing.
To give you an idea, half the reason Arizona is so conservative is because their big industry besides tourism is the military and nuclear plants.
Only a small cross section of Americans empathize with these crazy rednecks and gun nuts. It wouldn't be long before the remnants of the old men were hunted down, summarily executed, or worse, coerced into donning masks as officers of the Freedom Fries.
That's not a smart idea.
As for liberty-minded patriot groups that were supposedly to rally to their defense, some did, but their definition of tyranny is the state that tolerates white genocide and allows Jews to control the media.
I like how the old men are all consistently crazy right-wingers.
That's pretty great.
Does Chad Walker know that the guy who killed Kennedy was an ex-Marine? An ex-Marine sharpshooter?
Also the guy that committed the was it Temple State? That was the one where he was in the
clock shower spree killing?
He was also Marine Corps.
Texas State, yeah.
Yeah, he did have, that guy had the excuse of having a tumor in his brain, though. Like, literally, it was pressing on his amygdala, and it was driving him crazy.
Well, anyway, enough real history. Let's get on to history and the biggest quotations I want to give. The old men were presumed dead or dormant until their participation in the raid of 85, simultaneous attacks on Justice East, West, and Justice South processing centers in the of refugees and political. To the old men, this was not a humanitarian act. This was the first stroke of a new strategy, a revolutionary campaign to strike the state from both north and south, rural areas and urban. with resistance spread across North American continent and hiding among loyalists, the regime's made strength in conventional military power would become its greatest liability.
Okay, there is one more thing that I didn't have time to just go into. Employing ex-resistance fighters into your Freedom Fries units, that's just asking for them to just pull a Bonaparte. It
Oh,
really
because
is.
they used the MK Ultra Mind Wave that they learned from the Nazis back during in 45.
No, that would be if it was in an R setting where, remember, Randall and I did come up with quite a few. Al, I don't know if you saw that. But in that type of setting, that would make sense, but Chad Walker only bothered to build laser beams and gay robots. That's literally it in terms of sci-fi.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well,
let's see what the old men are good at.
Okay, so
is
common
that you?
commodities.
I guess I'll do
all right,
it.
I'll read it. Competencies. Locked and loaded. The gun is the very bedrock of the old man's culture of self-determination and government defiance. Not only have they been stockpiling weapons for years, but nearly every man, woman, and child affiliated with his faction knows how to fire and field strip an M16, interpret and execute tactical hand gestures, build improvised explosions, and pull a tourniquet tight with their teeth. They'll teach these skills to anyone who is willing to learn.
That's kind of
Rely.
amusing.
Self-reliance. Many of the family and intentional communities that comprise the old men hail from some of the most remote, harsh, and economically depressed places in the United States, aka Moo-Cow Flyover
The
County.
best part is if you look at the army, more people actually tend to be above the income average than below. Like, they actually recruit more people from the high end. Probably because those people, since they have the money, can actually afford to eat healthy.
Background, often augmented by an enthusiasm for the outdoors, ensures that neither their intolerable climate, dearth of supplies, nor lack of shelter can slow down the operational effectiveness of their rural guerrilla units. Gateways, the old men's militancy, fetishization of warriors, and chivalrous misogyny is derived from the same socio-political background that compels many men to enlist in the ranks of the Freedom Fist. While this is problematic in many ways,
How dare they're pro-military? How dare they care about the people we send to die in Dirt Holeville?
How dare they how dare they feel the call to defend the homeland? Fuck that.
How dare they're
Fuck
brave
that.
enough to get shot at?
Let the invaders come in.
also ensures that the Freedom Fist are more likely to parley with, surrender to, or even defect to a resistant unit led by this faction. So there's no mechanics here. This is just kind of stuff.
By the way,
It would be
the last advantage the old men should have, actual fucking training compared to
yeah,
most of the other
military.
factions.
Probably they're going to be the best. Actually, yeah, the best militarily trained. They may not have the most money, but they're probably going to be insane survivalists.
This would be the equivalent of Mao's Veterans of the Long March.
Imagine they'd be holding down in like shithole compounds in like Idaho or someplace like really the fuck out of nowhere where there's actually quite a bit of militias.
Adam, you want to get strategic liabilities?
Oh, this should be funny. The old men have a recruiting problem. It's not that they can't find recruits, it's that they can't always find the recruits they want. To many among the American libertarians who would be the best candidates to bolster their ranks, the slogan of the Gadsden flag, "No step on Snick," does not extend past their own property lines. So, essentially, they're only going after libertarians for some reason. Shouldn't they be going after army vets of all stripes or something like that?
I don't know. Reasons. It's a fluff. Shut up.
While their anti-state rhetoric is fierce, they are far more interested in protecting what's theirs than rising to their neighbor's defense or championing the principles of liberty. A white flag might be more appropriate for this lot who have de facto surrendered to the state. The actual soldiers are cowards, says Chad Walker, the man who would shit himself silly if he actually ever had to deal with an angry soldier. To ensure that the recruitment of the resistance fighters can outpace attrition, particularly in the dangerous fronts of rural America, the old men are forced to cut corners when it comes to vetting prospects. Those resistance partisans with the acumen to thoroughly vet new recruits, such as private investigators or journalists. What? Okay. Okay. I think you would get, like, an actual ex-recruiting officer or a drill sergeant, like a gunny. But
Oh no,
okay.
the National Enquirer tabloidist is the more competent one, obviously.
Are often tied up in more pressing espionage-related tasks inside urban centers. As a result, the old men's ranks include a small but growing number of double-agent defectors, self-declared sovereigns,
Oh,
sovereign sovsits,
oh
I
no,
love it,
am I being detained?
and patriot groups that have successfully hidden or downplayed their own white nationalist leanings. Each of these groups pose unique problems for the resistance's most martial faction. Freedom Fry soldiers defecting to the resistance are more likely to throw their lot in with the old men than with any of the other factions. These recruits are far and away the movement's most lethal, disciplined, and loyal assets, never mind the valuable intelligence they bring along with them. It takes immense conviction and courage to defect from the fist, unless you're a psyops mole committed to taking down the resistance from the inside. For this reason, the old men hold their best assets at arm's length. Sovereigns are the self-declared rulers of make-believe nations, bound only by the laws of constitutional documents they drafted for themselves. Sovsits, I know. While their militancy is appreciated by the old men, they are highly prone to seizing shared property as their own, getting into Hatfield-McCoy feuds with other sovereigns, and committing acts of political violence that have virtually no strategic value.
I'm sorry, but these guys sound like the most entertaining group in all of this. Like I'm just imagining some guy wearing the official, the official regal wardrobe of the Republic of Fred. It's just like his bathrobe, a pair of pink boxer shorts, and his shotgun. Like
Honestly,
getting in a shootout with his neighbor.
You're thinking
this
too
would be
small.
hilarious. Now I just want to play this game, but instead we're all trying to make our own micronations within the United States, and this is our fight to make our micronations.
Here's the thing, though. You're thinking too small. You could have one of those white nationalist groups that join in literally be Deagle Nation.
Like
on.
a bunch of juggalos carving out their own fiefdom up in New England. They get in a fight with the McDonald's Republic.
God damn it!
Let's
A
just
bunch
have
of
Deagle
fat.
Nation as a patriot group.
On, you have to finish it
Yeah,
up.
I am. Lastly, there are patriot groups that have pledged loyalty to the old men, but have failed to disclose that they once held or still hold white nationalist sentiments. While a couple of these groups are ashamed of their past or never really took the whole white power thing seriously, most of them are either trying to infiltrate the resistance on behalf of the regime or use it as an outlet to fulfill their own hate-fueled conspiratorial campaign, such as toppling the Zionist occupation of the U.S. government.
Zog is
Oh, we got Zog.
Yeah, so the old men are complete and utterly straw men to just be nothing but libertarian and far-right gun nuts, which is a little bit offensive.
See how the party fares.
the
Hint,
party
hint.
is the party. History and grievances. The party is a Oh god damn it! Social. And the
communist.
fucking bunch of fucking commies that deserve to be thrown out of goddamn helicopters. What they are. They espouse the Marxist view that the history is a continual struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, and the resistance battle against the regime is just another manifestation of this historical structure.
Fun fact: Hegelian dialectics kicked the shit out of Marxism in the fucking 1800s.
The party is old and battle tested. As early as the 19th century, they were contending with union busting efforts of the proto-fascist industrial boss and their Pinkerton mercenaries.
You mean they're scabs? Because that's usually how they counter unions.
Though through these engagements they mastered using general strikes as leverage, standing tall against bourgeois enforcers and exercising operational security to out moles and saboteurs on the boss's payroll.
So this is the industrial. This is the IWW then.
It's the Wobblies.
Yeah.
By tailoring Marxist rhetoric to reach to laborers of all stripes and directing their collective fury in a political practice, the party's vanguards outmaneuvered the bosses several times in the 20th century, securing numerous victories for American workers, such as the 40-hour work week, overtime pay, and the 2-day weekend.
Which can also be thanked to progressive presidents such as Theodore Roosevelt.
And in a little thing that Chad doesn't like to bring up, the fact that immigration was heavily restricted in the 1920s, which led to a relative labor which led to a relative labor shortage, which meant that union strikes were more effective because you couldn't just go down to the docks and hire a bunch of Irishmen.
And last but not least, you have the Great Society, as proposed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, as well as the New Deal by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And also something. Some of the average responses to strikes back then included actually gunning down the union men. Oh, and one more thing. Most union men actually feel the inner circle people that produce that garbage are fucking stupid. Like, they look at the pamphlets filled with Marxist bullshit and they just shrug, saying, I don't give a shit. It just means I get a better paycheck. Literally.
However, the Red Scare of the 1950s, McCarthy's rise of power began, provided the boss's way to bring the party's American progress to us. So commies are trying to co-opt the progressive move. Oh, this is like real commies. Bourgeois-sponsored propaganda over television, radio, and print would develop a powerful cognitive link between worker solidarity and Soviet-style authoritarianism. Advocating for one's dignity, safety, and prosperity in the workplace became a political indicator of foreign influence. Union organizers and rabble-rousers were snatched from the factory floor by governments and tried as Soviet agitators. Party-afflicted lawyers, financiers, and intellectuals too rich or well-connected could easily disappear as they were slandered by anti-Semitic politicians as being part of the international Jewish conspiracy.
That's so silly. You know what they could? You know what Chad could have just written instead that would have made a good reason? Striking factories were responded to by corporations by instantly shutting them down and opening them up in Taiwan or South Korea or places that we historically did.
Globalization, good.
Globalism is good. Globalism, good.
That's what happened to the animation market, by the way, people. In the 70s, since they were so so expensive, the response was just saying, no, go fuck yourself. We're going to Japan. They work for pennies. And then when Japan got too expensive, no, fuck you. We're going to Korea. It's even cheaper.
Globalism, great. And ironically, like the 50s were the heights of unions.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, well, because like I said, it wouldn't be until about the 60s that the Bracero program would have been approved, and open borders would become again. That's a little history for you all, people. Compelled and feared by the hate of the McCarthy program, the legions of workers were just a few years earlier were dismantling bourgeois power base, were turning on the goddamn fucking commies. To slow in their systemic eradication, the party adopted a fiercely anti-Kremlin bent in the 1960s, though many of the party
commies got it.
Fucking Euro trash. Though many party in the East still felt solidarity with their comrades in the East, publicly and proudly disowning the Soviet Union was the only way for the workers' movement in the United States to survive the decades of McCarthyism, the political movement that would eventually manifest as 1986's American fascism.
Even though McCarthy only had one term as president.
Yeah.
Alternate history.
However, what started as insincere political posturing became deep felt sentiment as Soviet Union eventually dissolved into a oh my god, fuck you,
So
Chad.
they became China?
Capitalist kleptocracy engaging in oppression and imperialism as bad or worse than the United States. Yeah,
So
China
I
much.
guess Alexei Kosygyn's reforms were actually applied. Okay.
So what they're saying is it wasn't true communism.
Yes, precisely.
Yep.
While the intellectual partisans of the Cold War threw away their lot with one of the two superpowers, the party championed the dissolution of nations and borders, replaced with regional autonomy and democratic social. Oh my
Honestly,
god!
you know what would have been better is if the party instead adopted Posidism.
Yes,
Oh God, yes. We need to start the nuclear war to bring about true communism and to make alliance with the dolphins and the aliens who are obviously communists.
Posidism is essentially what happens when you allow a very crazy person to read about Trotsky's own views on communism and then come up with this.
It's the best political ideology ever.
to the party, the regime is just the boss's new look. They see regime, border walls, internment camps, inflammation of racial tensions, or obfuscate or obsession with national identity, not as manifestations of fascism, but as violent strategies trying to break the proletariat, feuding into factions incapable of rising against them. Wait a minute, though. There's quite a bit of communist countries that were very fiercely nationalist. One of them was Cuba.
Oh, yep. Actually,
And the
a big theme in most Latin American branches of socialism and communism. And you're currently seeing that with the current failed state that should violently kick out their retarded bus driver president, who is not president, that Guaido guy is. Yeah, basically, that they're stupidly nationalistic too. They call themselves Bolivarian for a reason.
Oh, even Uncle Joe's Soviet Union was extremely nationalistic.
China, Soviet, um, uh, communist China during the Great Leap Forward. That was a symbol of nationalism. We were going to unite the net. This was a great leap forward for the Chinese people.
And
You're
wasn't
forgetting
Nasser?
some.
And wasn't Nasser a socialist too, but hyper nationalistic?
Forgetting something. That wasn't real communism.
It wasn't like Yugoslavia only brought together with the concept of the Yugoslavian idea.
Yep, Joseph
Not real,
Broz Tito. Oh,
not
Just
real
by the way,
communism.
so what you're saying is not even a few months ago, Venezuela went from communism to not communism. That's
Yep, yep.
2 months.
regime,
As soon as it fails, it's not real communism.
Okay, let's
the,
refocus.
regime, the regime isn't a true threat. It's simply a tool of the bankers. Let's replace it what they really want to say. The Jews,
Oh
the
God, they're
landowners,
becoming the doctor's plot. They're
and
taking
thieving
Stalinism.
the landowners and thieving captains of industry pulling the strings. Even the
Oh.
even the benevolent industrial barons who eschew their grotesque nationalism and materially support the resistance sit upon a throne of usurped lands and mutilated bodies.
I love this.
I like that. I like the whole running theme. It seems like in this movement is severe anti-Semitism.
I might as well show you the ideal person from the party too, since I have this saved as a picture.
Oh God.
Yeah, when I think of the party, I think of this. Just you see it.
Anime socialism.
Okay,
That's a receiver from the party, actually.
Randall, read about the revolutionary competencies that even
Should I do my terrible fake Russian accent for this?
yes.
Revolutionary competencies, political mobilization, elections, negotiation, and propaganda are very nice, but it often takes direct action to truly change the facts on the ground. Or severe application of torture in the Lubisca's basement.
You go to Blanca, you never come out. Oh, by the way, yes, we also hit the 100 bodies you managed to pull. We have more, don't worry.
The party has been leveraging general strikes, picket lines, demonstrations, counter demonstrations, black bloc tactics, and guerrilla media for over a century, and they put their experience to use whenever the resistance needs to organize mass political action.
Yeah, but then that just kind of instantly tells the regime to fire everyone and then throw them in prison. Or if they really don't care, just gun them down horribly.
Which this regime doesn't care.
Yeah,
Don't.
if they don't care, just do
Mutually,
that.
the party has long been experimenting with emergent, ad hoc, and resilient community structures to resist state violence and endure dehumanizing distributions of wealth,
Like that
whether
one
it is
hobo shelter that was built in Southern California.
whether it is improving to survive embargoes, building ad hoc tent cities at the center of revolutionary demonstrations, or physically occupying and fortifying unused urban spaces, the party always finds a way to feed and shelter the resistance population of revolutionaries and
Just
refugees.
envisioning them just taking that, you know that one weird Waco that's being built in South California by Troons?
Oh god, yeah. Um, for people not in the know, this is the founders of a trans charity bought like a parcel of land out near, I think it's like out near Death Valley,
Yeah, where
and they're
there's no
trying
water or anything.
they like shipped out a shipping container and set up like a failed Waco out there using money that they siphoned off from a charity,
That
Trans
trans,
Lifeline.
I thought all troons do that. Use
They were more egregious than normal.
Yeah, they
yeah,
actually got kicked out from the organization, or well, they transitioned out, as the letter put it.
transition to
Logistics. Whenever there is work, the party's vanguards are present, doing everything in their power to ensure that the means of production are serving the people instead of the bourgeoisie's war machine. The vanguards use their positions inside refineries, mills, factories, and transportation hubs to sabotage regime efforts or smuggle contraband and personnel into or out of secure facilities.
Translation: they have commissars at the back of in the back of each workroom, and they just gun you down violently whenever you fail to meet a quota.
And, Adam, let's talk about the strategic liabilities that this
I
wonderful group of people
I
bring.
I can literally summarize this into one sentence. It's fucking communism. It never will work, no matter how many times they lie and try to say it does. But since there's more than that, let's actually go into it. When it became clear that the party had taken a stake in the American insurgency, like minded comrades from all around the globe took notice and began to send them whatever supplies, political support, or skilled personnel that could be spared. The party's greatest patron, however, is none other than the Soviet Union. Although the superpower takes great pains to hide its direct intervention, that's not going to be hard to uncover. Chad, you do remember Iran Contra, right? Oh, wait, you don't. The party's leadership is cognizant of the Soviet meddlers in their midst, but they are convinced the party can benefit from Soviet support without ceding the faction's agenda to Russian oligarchs. Russia. The
Um,
oligarchs, however, are doing everything in their power to ensure a maximum return on their investment. Their agents, agitators, provocateurs, and paid shills bang the drum of red imperialism. Oh, so
literally, my Russia. Was the Russian oligarchy wasn't really a thing at this time, was it? It was
it would have
mostly
been a
the
thing in the mid. It would have been a thing more of a thing in the mid '90s, like mid
yeah,
yeah, they
'90s.
really came
like
around in the mid '90s.
of shock therapy and the selling off of the various stakes and all the shit over
Nationalized
there.
bureaus, yeah. I mean, you have apparatchiks, which were pretty goddamn wealthy. Like they were kind of like that, but not as bad, hilariously. Um, my thinking though is this is kind of hilarious, given that it kind of accidentally shows a thing that naturally did happen. My favorite being that the anti-nuclear movement was started by Russian provocateurs leading a bunch of dumb hippies to actually think that nukes were bad. Why? Because of little things like 3 Mile Island, which was successfully contained. There was the breeder plant in Detroit that almost went, but that would have been a very small leak.
Also, you got to remember. Also, Soviets did try to take advantage of racial tensions in the '60s by trying to get the more
Yeah, they
radical
funded the
elements.
Black Panthers.
Yeah. And they also, I don't think they started, but they definitely helped spread around a lot of the JFK assassination conspiracy theories and the AIDS denialism stuff.
The JFK thing was literally because Oswald Mosley, the Marine sharpshooter that got him, was an avowed communist who actually lived in the Soviet Union for a bit.
Wait, Adam, Oswald Mosley, the British fascist leader, I didn't know he assassinated JFK.
Lee Harvey Oswald, thank you for correcting me. I was thinking, I've been playing a lot of Hoi 4, so I'm just now envisioning this failed British member of parliament in his black turtleneck, years added to him, of failure and tears after getting out of prison, just murdering Kennedy. It's great.
Oswald Mosley, JFK Assassin for
I
episode title.
Accidentally made a new conspiracy. Whoops.
Who was really on the grassy knoll that day?
He was slurring in a Geordie accent because enraged.
Okay, guys, we've gone way off the rails. We actually have to finish this shit.
Oh god, yeah, we do. The psychological operators bolster a vocal minority in the party who consider Soviet Russia to be a workers' utopia. They are in severe denial that this nation is now run by a murderous kleptocrats who served in this country's various iterations of secret police and engages in imperialist behavior on par with or worse than America. Hiding behind the banner of anti-imperialism, they rightfully bemoan the United States' colonialist history and the CIA-sponsored tyrants it has propped up around the globe, but refuse to acknowledge the oppression and brutalization of peoples throughout the world currently suffering under Soviet-propped tyrants. They remain the Kremlin's most useful idiots, providing intellectual and political cover for Soviet imperialist aggression, manifesting as genocide and the eradication of underclasses throughout Asia and the Middle East. Oh my god, I'm starting to fall apart. Tragically, the anti-imperialist love for Soviet bolstered autocrats is doing just as much to bolster fascism and imperialism abroad as America's reactionary foreign policy. Much of the world hungers for the party's vision of liberation and worker solidarity. Oh, fuck no, they ain't.
Yeah, we all know what side Chad's bread is buttered on.
Yeah, most of the world doesn't want their shit seized or some asshole telling them, some asshole dictating what can and can't be built and.
By the way, this kind of implies that at one point the Soviet Union was good.
Yes, back when Uncle Joe was in charge. Then you'd have the NVKD, the the Gulag, all
Doctor's
that wonderful
Block, the Great Purge, the Lesser Purge.
I guess Solzhenitsyn didn't know what he was writing when he wrote the Gulag Archipelago.
Obviously, he was a paid shill by Vladimir Putin.
Their propaganda rings hollow when it sounds like they're simply taking the Soviet side in the Cold War. If America's workers and underclasses continue to tolerate the party's fake anti-imperialists, they're likely to become a populist nationalist movement instead of an actual socialist movement.
What the thing is with most, but in many ways, isn't that what most communist movements transform into, though?
But it's not socialism. The only real socialism is from the occasional cortex screaming that we need to bankrupt the planet to make the United States pure green. Socialism is not truly international, not truly engaged in the plight of peoples abroad. Globalism is essentially National Socialism. Nazis. The Kremlin would like nothing more than to see this red shirt, brown shirt alliance continue to grow. Why?
Oh no, commie Nazis!
Common Nazis. Oh my god, that'd be an ultimate enemy in a real game. That would also commie Nazis would probably be an enemy that you'd want to double.
fucking National Bolsheviks.
That's basically what Chad accidentally is admitting to.
They're a party of national. It would be hilarious if the party in this was nothing but a bunch of national Bolsheviks.
Or they were like the
Uh,
Thoth party.
I think that
Yeah, you have
yeah,
the
I think
faith, Randall.
I was gonna suggest calling it.
Oh, calling it? Yeah, that's a good point. We've gone through a lot. Holy shit.
There's so much. There's so much dumbass fluff to get through, people. It's just too much. This is just too large of a turd to shit out. So tune in next week when we handle the when we handle what happens when evangelicals and rich industrialists team together.
We'll
God
also
is
probably cover
in
the
his
regime next time.
holy palace. Have a good day, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Stalin
Good
did
night.
nothing wrong.
Fuck.